Hello and welcome to ReelQuick episode 24. Today we have our usual Patreon movie review. Today we are going to be reviewing the 2018 film Burning. This was a suggestion by Ben Hansey, one of our great patrons. Be sure to check out our perks and offers and benefits we have on the Patreon. See if there's anything that fits you and if you want to join the community. As usual, please make sure you drop us a follow on TikTok. Letterboxd, we recently hit 1K on there. Spotify, rate us on there. Sub on YouTube, we're closing on 3K, and we're just doing it really, really well and everything, and we appreciate you all massively. But I'll drop I'll let people know the synopsis. This came out in 2018. It was directed by Chang-dong. Deliveryman Jung Soo is out on a job when he runs into Haimi, a girl who once lived in his neighborhood. She asks if he'd mind looking after her cat while she's away on a trip to Africa. On her return, she introduces to Jung Soo an enigmatic young man named Ben, who she met during her trip. And one day, Ben tells Jung Soo about his most unusual hobby. This was actually a good pick because I've been wanting to watch this for a while. I've been watched this for ages, but I just never bit the bullet on it for some reason. And it's also a good pick because none of us had seen it before. I'll go to who is I believe the highest on this. I don't know what Tyler has it yet because I don't think he told us, but I think George, you had it pretty highly, so I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I have it at a 4.5 out of 5. I really enjoyed my time with this movie, and like Seth said, I'm really happy we picked this because it has been on my watch list forever.
Yeah.
But the runtime was just what kept turning me off. And, obviously we're all working men. It's tough to squeeze in like a 2-hour and 30-minute movie, here and there. So I'm really happy we picked this. I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed this psychological tension building film that I was watching. It is a slow burn, and I understand. I saw a lot of Letterboxd reviews of people saying this movie took a lot of time to get going, which I completely understand. But once we kind of get into the psychological tension between Jung Soo and Ben, I was fully immersed in this very mysterious environment that we were put in. The conversations that we were treated to, I think were nerve-wracking. They were pulsating. They were incredibly personal and emotional. I think the writing of this movie was fantastic. And then obviously all the credit in the world to the actors. Steven Yeun is just incredible. He gives such a subtle yet powerful performance here that I really love to watch. And then, when we get into spoilers, we'll obviously talk about like the ending and such. But I think this movie wrapped up really well. Like Seth mentioned in his Letterboxd review, there's a lot of like themes of classism, and it was a little bit reminiscent of Parasite to me. With those themes, but overall, I really enjoyed my time with this movie. It did take its time to get going, but once it kind of like kicked into that next gear, I was fully locked in. And I'm such a sucker for a psychological thriller, and I think this one was done in such a unique and calm, reserved way. And I think I was very attracted to that part of it.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. There's a few. I'll go after you three. There's a few issues I had, but I think you're on the money in terms of it's slow burn, but it does have a lot to offer in terms of what it makes you think about. And we'll go into there's a lot of theories on this film. Actually, there's a lot you can kind of look at, and a lot of questions you can bring up. But we'll go over that when we get to spoilers. Anyway, Cam, what do you think?
Yeah, I enjoyed this movie. I liked it a lot. I didn't love it. And I would describe this movie almost as like it's a psychological thriller. I would describe it as like a psychological intriguer, where I was intrigued the entire time, but I was never thrilled or taken back.
It's like ambiguous the whole way through.
Yeah, I was never on the edge of my seat. So that's my new genre that I'm coming up with. And then this kind of falls in like the same realm as like Tar for me, where there's a lot of deeper meanings. It's a slow burn. It's an intriguing movie, but I don't think it ever has anything for me that wheels me in and brings it up to that like S tier thriller or even A tier thriller, I'd say.
Do we think it is a thriller?
It's listed.
Is it listed?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's listed as a bunch of things. I would dial it into a psychological thriller. I think that
psychological. I definitely am with. Yeah.
But like, I understand that it's a drama as well. I understand it's a suspenseful mystery. It's a ton of things, but I think psychological thriller is like
according to Letterboxd, the three genres are mystery, thriller, drama.
That makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense.
I don't disagree with. I just, like I said, I think it's think it's intriguing and it has you there. It just doesn't do anything to just like keep me on the edge of my seat the entire time.
What did you rate it on your
81 out of 100, 4 out of 5 stars. It's right there in a movie, like I said, that I think it's good, not great. We can get into it a little bit. Steven Yeun is great. I think the acting performances were very good. He obviously is the standout. In my opinion, I think
I loved him.
Yeah, I think so.
I loved him.
I mean,
it was in the eyes. It was in the eyes. He when you're introduced to this character,
because he's beautiful.
Like,
that's
no. I'm saying
he
like,
is
you think he's like this rich, arrogant guy, and like essentially that's what he is. But you could see it in his eyes that he's like this very like conflicted man. And then there's that one scene, and this isn't really a spoiler, but there's that one scene where Ben tells Jung Soo that he's like jealous of him. And he's trying to play it off as a joke, and he's trying to like laugh his way through that conversation, but it's in his eyes. You could see he's like, his eyes are getting watery. He's like he's a battered man who's trying to play off this, rich persona as best as he can. He's so good in this fucking movie.
He is very good. I really,
Steven Yeun, if you're listening, I love you.
Yeah, it's good. He is very good. Tyler, we obviously both watched it today. You only just finished it just before you got on the pod. So what were your thoughts?
Yeah, so I echo everything George was saying about Steven Yeun, but also the cast as a whole. I thought none of them had really any standout moments where you're like, that is a great piece of acting in terms of something that, you would see on a clip on Twitter. But I think as a whole, like I thought just like very subtle performances throughout that I thought everyone did incredibly. Technical aspects, I thought this movie was near flawless. I thought the cinematography was great. I really enjoyed the kind of string acoustic plucking noises that was going throughout that really built the tension well. For me, it takes a while to get going, and this isn't anything against slow burns because I genuinely do enjoy slow burns. But this was adapted from a short story, and for me, I felt like I could really feel that. Lee Jung Soo is who you're mainly following this movie, and you get to sit with him while he's walking long distances. Yeah. And I feel like every single scene, and again, like I'm an idiot. I don't know how to make a movie, so this is just my 2 cents. But for me, just every single scene, like every single one of this movie felt like you could probably snip off like 10 seconds off the front and 10 seconds off the back. I just felt like every single scene went on a little too long. Which I totally get what they're trying to go for there. You're really sitting with him, seeing what his mindset is like. There's a lot of questioning and mystery, which we'll get into in spoilers. So you're really sitting with him for long periods of time as this mystery kind of clouds over your head. You're like, what is true? What is not true? But for me, I think that really just, for this story that I felt like was something that could have been handled under 2 hours, felt like it dragged for me. But again, technical aspects, everything was great. The cast was all brilliantly acted, and for me, I ended up giving it, I think I landed right where Seth was. I wanted to give it 3.5, but then I went to my spreadsheet and it ended up being at a 4. It's at a 7.5 out of 10, so like the very lowest, but just based on where it stacked up for some other movies for me. So a low 4 for me. I think Cam also hit on the head. It's very good, and there's a lot you can dive and sink your teeth into like you could with Tar, which I know for me, after I saw Tar, I appreciate it a lot more, and I actually enjoyed researching the movie more than I enjoyed watching it. I enjoyed watching Burning more than Tar, but I think this is one that will benefit from a second watch and reading into some theories, but that's where I'm at. Seth, how about you?
Yeah, to be honest, I thought I would like this film a lot more because I usually like slower paced films. I just think for me, I'll go on to negatives first and I'll say positive because there's a lot to take away positively from this film as well. I echo Tyler's thoughts. It was built on a short story, and it just feels so sparse to earn the runtime of 2 hours 30. It felt like quite thinly distributed. It felt like a lot of these shots where we are getting these kind of focus shots, for example, when she's dancing, she kind of takes the top off and we get that kind of shot of the scenery. I think those shots are great, but I think it gets to a certain point where they are overused to the point of exaggerating runtime, but acting like you're trying to feel something in those moments. And that's just my takeaway from it anyway. I think there was a really good, interesting commentary on classism, on morals, on jealousy, on isolation as well, obviously from the main character, which we saw. And I think technically, I think it was fantastic. I think the sound design, I think the shot selection were genuinely amazing. And I do think that there is a lot you can kind of go into this film. There is a lot of theories. Like I had a few theories. We've all kind of said our thoughts. Do you want to just go into spoilers from here? Or
yeah,
because I've got a few theories on this.
Did you say your rating first? Sorry, I don't know. If
sorry, 3.5.
Okay,
3.5.
Do you want to say what Ben's weird hobby is first? 'Cause we haven't mentioned it.
It really, yeah. So I mean, obviously his weird hobby is what they call greenhouses. Greenhouses?
Yeah.
Burning greenhouses, which you can determine what you want, and obviously we're in spoilers now anyway. But we know that most people think he doesn't actually burn greenhouses, and that is obviously a metaphor for killing people, which is obviously the main takeaway from this film. However,
I'm glad I got that because I was like, I think he's killing people, and then I read stuff and I was like, I got it. I knew it.
He's definitely popping some people in the throat.
Yeah.
The first thing I'll ask you guys is obviously we're led to believe that he has obviously killed Jaime, and there is a lot of theories on this as to, do you believe he has, or do you believe he hasn't, or do you believe she is a complete fiction of the imagination and you are just witnessing a man in complete isolation? There's a lot of theories in this. The final shot, obviously, the final silent sequence is him, the main character, seeing him, going up to him, and obviously stabbing him. And a lot of people have said that by his reaction, it's like a shocked reaction, and maybe it says something to the fact that he is nothing to do with this, and this is kind of his jealousy taking over in his isolation. Do you think he actually did kill Jaime, or do you think that is complete fiction? Like,
I think I'm on the side that I think he killed Jaime. I think I do. I'm fully on board with.
I'm with that.
When I watch a movie, whatever like my first initial reaction is, I think that's what I stick with. And Jung Soo goes to Ben's apartment. He all of a sudden has a random cat. Coincidentally, after Jaime's cat goes missing, he sees Jaime's what was it, her bracelet or her watch?
Yeah, watch.
Place. Yeah. And then he goes missing, and then I think it's all just a little too coincidental not to believe that he killed her. And then to the point of him stabbing Ben at the end, I don't think that was Ben. I don't think that was like made up. Like he just like needed to do something. I think that was Ben accepting the fact that he's being killed by someone with a reason. Like he's like cut off from this life of killing people now because someone is taking him out, and he's just like, it's this moment of acceptance where he looks into Jung Soo's eyes and he's like, okay, like this works. Like I've had this hobby of killing people for, however long he's been doing it. Now the person killing me has a legitimate reason, and I'm accepting my fate here.
Do you see that as like them both as the reputation of the higher and lower class? Specifically, I don't know much about Korean economy and stuff like that, but it's similar to what is portrayed in Parasite, whereas I see them as a representation of the complete higher and the complete lower, and especially in that final scene, in the way that he kind of kills him, I see that as a representation of that.
It's one of those things where like Ben obviously comes from wealth, and he's killing people without caring. He has this hobby because he's not even remotely worried about getting caught or whatever, just because of maybe it's an over self-confidence that he has. And then Jung Soo murders
the arrogance,
and it just feels way more personal. He feels like he has way more to lose being in that situation. So yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about this little class warfare that's displayed in this movie.
I agree with the class point, but I also feel like this movie has a lot of themes of like hungering for things. So like obviously they talk about that Jaime has this fake orange, or right, it's a tangerine or something. And this is not an original thought. I read all this bullshit. And she's like obviously like fake eating, and they're hungering for something. And Ben is like he hungers for a more exciting life. Hence why we talked about this, Seth, earlier. He yawns in every scene because this life is not interesting to him, but killing people is. And and I think that kind of is more like everyone desires something, and he desires a more exciting life. So I do think there's a lot of class to it. Whereas Jung Soo desires hearing a ticking noise every 1.25 seconds in order to represent 7 years on Earth.
There it is. You worked it in a little more cleverly this week.
I don't know. I tried to get it out early.
But I think
it's a little different.
In terms of classism and politics, this is an original thought, so it could be complete stupidity.
Bullshit. Yeah.
But so I was thinking like, so you have Lee Jung Soo and Jaime, and then in the middle of the story, in comes Ben, and I feel like his Western name is pretty significant as opposed to, Lee Jung Soo and Jaime, and he comes in and he's acting like, he's rich, he's wealthy, he has whatever he wants, and he just comes in, takes what he wants, takes as he pleases, and doesn't really think any consequences are coming. So I think there's a lot that Seth talks about classism within, Korea itself, but I don't know. I was also taking some Western world coming over, just taking what they want, doing what they want, not really caring about the consequences.
I mean, I don't know if that's true, but it makes sense. I just
feel like the name Ben just has to signify something.
Yeah,
it's just such a basic name.
Yeah. We also talked this in the Real Pod. Movies often over-explain themselves, and this movie has almost the opposite. I wouldn't call it an issue because I really enjoy the ambiguity of it. It has a lot of questions. Is this cat even real? Is Ben actually killing people? Did Ben burn a greenhouse down? Because at one point, Lee Jung Soo goes and he confronts him. And he's like, "I've gone to every greenhouse in the past 4 days, and you didn't burn anything down." And he's like, "Or did you just not see them?" Kind of thing. So he's so high on himself. It's one of those things where it's asking a ton of these questions, and I kind of like that it didn't really, answer any of them directly. I like that it's up for interpretation.
Yeah, there's. I was doing what Cam was doing, like looking at things after, because it is always interesting researching stuff like this, because you can make your own assumptions and then see others. There's a massive theory that he never actually met her anyway. And if you actually watch some parts, there is some conversation which don't really make sense. But then there's also some conversations in which he has with Ben, where he basically indirectly references that he did kill her. He says that she disappeared like smoke, whilst referring to the greenhouse and stuff like that, which kind of makes sense. It was kind of cool. And also the yawning thing as well. I actually really like that. I said to you before, Cam, I noticed he yawned in every scene, but I just had no idea why.
Yeah, that's just what I
meant
thought.
Because he literally yawned every single scene.
Mm-hmm.
I think the main issue for me was with these films where there is so much to look at. I usually am excited by that, but there was no point where I was completely infatuated. Is the issue I had, where I'm thinking about everything, and usually I'm so excited by, is this real? Is this what is actually happening here? But it felt the first hour and a half were quite exhausting, and I was worried. After the first hour and a half, if that had kept going, I would probably end up giving it a 2, honestly. I just didn't really enjoy the first hour and a half. I felt it was quite whimsical, if anything, and kind of meandering and just plodding along and not really getting anywhere. We're an hour in and what's happened. But then, looking back, I do think it serves a purpose, and I also completely understand why people love this film, because a lot of people really like it, definitely. George, for one. So I definitely get it. I just think for me, there was so much going on, and usually that would excite me, but for something where the story is quite sparse and it's quite a simple narrative at the same time, I wasn't really infatuated at any point. I wasn't loving it. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of the way I saw it anyway.
Seth, did you say there's theories out there that Jaime never existed?
Yeah, so I read something. I'll try and get it up if you've got something else to say whilst
well, yeah, so I guess I could see things. I could see. I feel like if that was true, that would just introduce a ton of plot holes. But also, I can see why that would be a thing, because so for me,
it's a weird one. Yeah.
One thing I knocked it down, which could one reason it's not really knocking it down, but thrillers always have this trope that this movie falls into, where beginning of the story starts with someone running into someone from their past, then all of a sudden just being infatuated with their life, and it's just oh, I bumped into you out of nowhere, and now that's the story kicks off from there. But if he never even ran into her because it was a weird circumstance, that could be the case. And then the other thing is he they have sex together, but then later he's in her bed masturbating. So did they ever even actually have sex, or was he imagining all that?
Yeah, that's the point.
He had to kind of break into and then when he was checking on the cat, he kind of had to break into the room. Yeah, exactly. But I can see where those strings are there, so you could say maybe she never really existed. But for me, as much as I love that theory and I saw where they're coming from, I feel like it kind of just introduces more plot holes than it explains.
Do you think it's possible that she existed, but not in the way that he was seeing her, as in that he didn't actually have this relationship with her that he thought? That she existed and he saw her, but not into the point where he's in her room having sex with her, he's going for dinners with her and stuff like that. He may be kind of observing, if anything. That's kind of the way I see it.
That could be, yeah.
I don't know if
that's a good middle ground.
That's a big stretch, I think, saying she didn't exist. But I do think we see, in the later one where he's masturbating in bed and she's doing it for him, behind him, whatever. I think for me, it's obvious that she wasn't there and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he's in her room, standing there, looking for her and with the cat and stuff. I think there's an ideology that he might just be observing her life rather than just being in it. But I do think she exists. I think that might be a bit of a stretch. George, what do you think?
My only thing is, never once while I was watching this movie did that thought come across my mind. So I'm inclined to say that she didn't exist.
Yeah,
and like I said, I like to finish a movie thinking what I was thinking throughout the movie, and not one point did I say, yeah, that woman's not real. So I don't think I'm necessarily on that train. I think she was real. Maybe some of it was in his head, and some of it he was just, imagining. Like, did they really have sex? Maybe that instance is like, okay, maybe that was made up. But I think she was a real person.
Yeah, I'd probably be on the same lines. Cam, anything to add at all?
No, I don't have a ton. There's one fun fact that I kind of liked from the old IMDb.
I was going to ask you for any fun.
Yeah, I didn't find a ton that I love, but this one's kind of fun. Is that when Lee Jung Soo compares Ben to the Great Gatsby, he's like a rich guy that we really don't know what he does. In this and Gatsby, it deals with like a triangle of love, one wealthy and then one kind of less wealthy, and then the woman who has a link to both of them. So that's kind of a fun little, connection. That's the only one I really enjoyed. I will say there is one point where Jaime is saying that she wants to just disappear into the sunset, I believe. And then obviously that kind of happens. She's dancing in the sunset, and then she's never in the movie again. As she's disappeared. So I like that little connection. Like I said, I think this movie's intriguing and just not amazing. It doesn't have anything that's perfect or amazing. I just think it's good.
I think this could go up for me on a rewatch. I think there's a lot of things you'll find out on a rewatch that you'll understand a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe if I rewatch, I'll like it a bit more, but nothing else to really add. Anything else? Anyone else want to add?
I have just two quick notes. So one, like, there's a half-baked thought, but I feel like the symbolism of nudity had to be a thing here, because like she was dancing topless and was kind of like felt freeing, but then realized at the end like she's not quite free. Whereas at the end of the movie, when he kills Ben, he gets completely naked and gets in the car. It's kind of like he's free of this, he's over it. So haven't really pondered on that enough, but nudity is definitely a symbol in here.
It makes sense.
And the only other thing is, because I finished this like right before the pod, so I only got to see like one quick little article on some stuff explained. A lot of people were calling the ending like shocking, but for me, like, I thought that was pretty clear the direction it was going all along. Were any of you shocked by the ending that he was going to kill Ben?
Not at all. Not at all. Okay. That was clearly the direction it was going to take.
Yeah, because I think like shout out Raiders of the Lost Pod, but they were like their quick reviews like a super shocking ending, and I was like, that was like the least shocking part. Yeah, I thought it was pretty. Maybe it's just because like for me, maybe just thrillers. Like I've seen so many. That's why like the beginning, I was kind of like, oh, classic. He's just like going about his days. Like, oh my gosh, you're someone from my past that I haven't really talked about. Let's get connected. Now we're gonna be like completely entranced in each other's lives. So I don't know. Maybe there's just a couple tropes to fill into.
I think the shock is just the theories that you produce yourself. I don't think the shock is anything to do with the actual film. I think it's what you think the film is. Like I always thought that was the direction it was going to take at the end. I think. Most of us did as well, but yeah. So obviously I give it a 3.5. Cam a 4.
81 out of 100. Yeah.
100. Yeah, whatever. Tyler 3.5.
4, but 7.5 out of 10. Just right on the board.
George, top one, 4.5. As usual, this is a Patreon recommendation. Please have a look, see if there's any benefits. Again, we won't ask you for money if you do want to join the community. The opportunities there. Really appreciate all the support at the moment on Spotify, TikTok, Instagram, Letterboxd, Twitter. Probably missing something. Spotify, I said that. Apple Music, it is what it is. There's your Apple Music shout out, Cameron. No, podcast.
Apple Pie.
I'm going to end this now because I'm speaking gibberish and I'm very tired. I'm very hungry. Speak to you all soon, and thanks for listening.